Most of us like to think that clothing doesn't matter that much, that it's superficial, but almost everyone has experienced a moment where what they were wearing changed something. The way they walked into a room, the way they felt about themselves, or the way other people saw them. My guest today is Daniel Lindström, one of Sweden's most respected fashion editors. For decades, he has been part of the international fashion world, attending shows in Milan, Paris, and yes, Florence as well, one of my favorite towns. And he has been shaping how people think about menswear. But this conversation isn't really about fashion. It's about identity, it's about confidence and belonging, and the quiet psychological power of actually clothing. So, I started with a simple question. Daniel, do you remember the first moment when clothing changed how people saw you or how you saw yourself? For Daniel, clothing didn't begin with fashion. It began with sport, tennis, golf, and brands like Lacoste and Fred Perry. But even as a kid, he noticed something interesting. Changing what he wore changed how he felt and how people actually reacted to him. Sometimes identity begins earlier than we realize.
I have some early memories when I was maybe around 9, 10, 11 years old. I grew up in a city called Östersund. And that's a city in the north of Sweden. But I was playing golf and tennis. And when I participated in that kind of sports, I was early interested in the clothes. So I remember I was wearing these typical brands that both from tennis and golf, like Lacoste and Fred Perry and brands like that. So I remember I was early interested in brands, and also I changed clothes every day, and that was not the usual thing about boys in that age.
No.
So early on, I was quite aware of how I dressed, and also I think I understood early that it could make an impact for your environment.
Years later, the curiosity would take him somewhere very different, the international fashion world. But this entry into the world of fashion wasn't carefully planned. It happened almost by coincidence.
Oh, it was very special. I got my job as a fashion director in 1999, so it's like 26 years ago. I was hired at a cafe magazine as would you say, a normal editor. I was writing about sports and health, tech, and stuff like that. And there was a female fashion director there who quit. She got a job at an advertising bureau, and the editor-in-chief just asked me, Daniel, do you want to do this? Because it wasn't that popular in 1999 among guys at the staff to do fashion. So it was a coincidence that I was interested in clothes, but I was writing about other stuff. So I became the fashion director in 1999, and then I knew early that I wanted to go to the shows, because in Stockholm we had some department stores where they sold Prada and Gucci and Dolce & Gabbana and brands like that. And I could see that they were important among the fashion crowd in Stockholm. So I tried to build up a relationship with these brands. So in January 2000, I think, I went to Milan for the first time. And of course, I was kind of lost in the beginning. But it was also very, very small at that time. If you compare to now, 25 years ago, it was, if you can find some videos from that period. There was a TV channel called Fashion TV. If you Google that, you can see some of the early Prada shows, and it's so small. It's just maybe 200-300 people with it was also only like buyers and editors at that time, and some local old people from Milan. So I was completely lost, and I remember at the first Prada show I had an invitation, but I was standing in a corner. I had a seated place, but I didn't understand that I had a seat. So I was standing, but I had a seat, so I didn't know how to do not anything.
Imagine arriving in Milan at your first Prada show, standing in the corner, not even realizing that the invitation in your pocket gives you actually a seat. I think everybody has a moment like that. Moments when we realize we stepped into a world we don't fully understand yet.
I felt kind of new in this world, and that's how I still feel a little bit, because I've never had so many colleagues from Sweden when I'm doing this. So I'm still quite alone when I go to the shows now, 25 years after. And that's not because, that's more because it's more and more difficult to get invitations.
Yeah,
so
I can
maybe
imagine.
the brands,
Yes.
they only have one for whole Scandinavia, or two or something. So it's really hard to get in, because there's so many influencers. The Asian market is huge, so it's difficult to get in. So I'm still quite alone.
Did you have any kind of imposter syndromes? Because I mean, I know a lot of people, especially I'm even if with the job that I'm actually doing, I always feel kind of like if they see through me, they know that I can't anything like that. Did you ever had that kind of a feeling in that? Because I would feel
No, I didn't.
really
But
afraid,
I
to be honest.
felt I didn't. I felt like an outsider. Because of many reasons. One, that I was from Sweden. It's an outskirts when it comes to fashion, and also that I was alone, and I wasn't. There's a quite strong community, and it was at that time among like the male fashion editors, and they were going to parties and they were going to dinners, and I really didn't join that. And I had also like just became a father. I became a father early. So I had family back in Stockholm. So there was stuff that was more important for me than to live this fashion life full on.
What's interesting is that Daniel didn't describe this as an imposter syndrome. The feeling of being an outsider, coming from Sweden, far from the center of fashion world, traveling alone, watching the social dynamics of an industry from the edge. Sometimes being an outsider gives you something valuable, perspective actually. Despite that distance, Daniel stayed. Not because of status, but because fashion at its best never stands still.
And at that time also there wasn't so, I mean, I certainly I dressed up a little bit, but there were no street style photographers, there were no social media. So back at that time when I started, I didn't care so much what I was wearing. But when maybe around 2004, 5, 6, when all these street style bloggers came, and there was like a scene outside the shows. I mean, back around 2000, it was very quiet, very quiet. You couldn't even, if you went to Milan during Men's Fashion Week, you could hardly not see it was a fashion week, and it's completely different today. So, but of course, I was trying to look as an ambassador for my magazine and professional. So, but I think I care more today how I dress.
For me, I'm always I follow that, not in all its entirety, obviously, because it sometimes feels like a little bit too far away for how, in my kind of environment, how I can or should dress. So, but I think lots of people who can at least understand that situation when you thrown in, right, which is quite special. Especially if you start off and you don't actually belong. We talked about where you actually became aware, but I mean, fashion, you said it as well, right? It's not necessarily the most obvious career path. And you said it was also by coincidence. You started, so what you studied was journalism then, and that was the entry point into the cafe part. Okay.
It was a coincidence, but I think when I started at the cafe, I had 1 or 2 years before I became the fashion director, and I think I could see that there was fun stuff happening, and so I think I wanted to have that job, but I wasn't sure. And I mean, this job, why I'm still doing it today after so many years, it's a lot about the experiences that that I have in life, and it's more about meeting interesting people and traveling. So I feel very, very rich when it comes to what I experience. Today I'm a freelance. It's hard, some month it's really tough to get it like it's super tough when it comes to the salary and how you get paid these times. But I feel so rich when it comes to experiences. So I love this work, and I will try to go on for some more couple of years.
So it's not necessarily the aesthetics and the creativity behind it. It's more kind of the people that you meet.
It's different thing. I think cover fashion is also very interesting because it's always moving forward. It's progressive. Fashion is progressive. You see something and it's new. I mean, not every brand, but I'm so excited when I go to the big shows and what's going to come out on the catwalk now. So if I covered maybe, I don't know, maybe it's the same if you're a car journalist or whatever, but I feel that fashion is progressive. Fashion is also political. Fashion is it's so interesting in many ways. So that's one thing. It never stands still. So I always see new stuff. And then I also see a lot of beauty in my job. I see beautiful people, beautiful buildings, beautiful locations, beautiful cities. So I'm very spoiled when it comes to that.
For Daniel, the real reward was never money. It was experience, travel, people, beauty, and the feeling of being close to something constantly evolving. When I did some research, you described clothing as a kind of an armor. For me, actually, it is really the case because of getting into a role, and I'm doing that quite on purpose or quite kind of targeted. I'm in sales in software, but I understand the kind of the impact that, for example, a power suit and tie and the right shoes actually have if you kind of get into the room. How it helps your posture, or if you try to match your opponents, how they dress and appear, that they don't feel kind of like they are, that you're on the same level, and what that impact is on the communication part as well. Is that for you still the same?
It's the same. I can say I dress in three different. A normal day, I'm very, very functional. I bicycle a lot in Stockholm, for example. I'm a runner. I run almost every day. So I'm very into sports. I'm very into technical fabrics and stuff like that. So when I go out, or maybe I go for a meeting or something in Stockholm, like a casual day, I'm very, very. I always think functional. But then I have another side when I love to dress in suits. I love suits, and I love the feeling that I can feel when I dress up, and I wear tie, and I feel strong. And if I have a speech or something, or if I go to fashion events, I almost always wear a suit. Always a jacket, sometimes like a blazer with another pant, like another trouser or jeans or something. But I love blazers, I love suits. But then I also have, like, when I go out and I want maybe to a nightclub or something, not nightclub, but I'm too old for that. But if I go out and I want to meet a woman, or I want to look attractive, then I have another personality, maybe then maybe I have a leather jacket or something that feels a little bit more edgy, more sexy in a way than a suit. Yeah.
Functional clothing for everyday life. A suit when strength and authority matter, and sometimes something slightly more daring when you want to feel attractive. For me, for example, I'm really into sneakers, which are probably also way too old for that. But I had this kind of the sneakers, which kind of like I felt so strongly, and actually now, and there was an Adidas sneaker, which was re-released, and I actually bought that again because I was so in love with that. Did you have also something with an outfit per se, or with particular kind of jacket, or?
I think if I just pick one type of jacket, I love like the black bomber jacket. Like that. That's a jacket I always go back to because I think if it's a little bit oversized and a little bit boxy, and I want this classic nylon shiny bomber jacket, which you can like dress up, dress down. You can have jeans, you can have boots, but you can also have like suit pants and a shirt underneath and look very. I love that kind of jacket because every time I wear it, I feel I look good and I also feel strong. So the black bomber jacket I wear during the whole year, and also one particular shoe, two I would say. I only almost use two kind of shoes. I wear like gray New Balance like running sneakers, these classic New Balance, and then I wear like black penny loafers. So that's the kind of shoes.
That's your go-tos.
Yeah.
If you hadn't brought up the bomber jacket, I would have.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you're kind of quite often in pictures with that kind of with that style, right? So that's I would have come back to that anyways.
But I've always been a fan of like Prada and Raf Simons and designers like that, and they always had the bomber jacket in the collection. So yeah.
When Daniel talks about style, one thing matters more than trends: fit. Not a brand, not a price, just how clothing sits actually on your body.
You see a lot of like politicians, you see businessmen, and they have suits, they have blazers, but the fit is not good. So I think there's a lot to do there. You can easily increase everything and get a better style if you learn more about the fit, especially if you buy a suit. No one have a perfect body. No one has a body that is completely like perfect. So when you buy a suit, for example, you should always like, maybe there's something you had to shorten a sleeve or shorten the trousers and make the trousers a little bit bigger or take them in or stuff. So I think you see a lot of people trying. They buy suits and they have more formal wear, but it doesn't fit. It could fit better. So that's something that
Yes.
I would say, because as you said, in Sweden, a lot of people know about how Gore-Tex work. I mean, the materials and the fabrics and stuff like that, and how should they dress when it's really cold. But when it comes to this, I mean, when you go to Milan or something, you see all these older guys with perfectly fitted clothes.
Yes. No one has the perfect body, but clothing that fits properly can completely change how someone actually looks and especially feels. I was actually just in Sweden a couple of weeks ago, and they're selling still quite tight trousers, for example, which I was really surprised.
Yeah.
I know that in Italy, that's also the case. They're always kind of go more for the slim fitted style and everything, and not really loose, despite any trends at all, right? And here that obviously some people will never change that kind of concept. So they will not kind of, with the shapes, will not work too much with that at all.
It's interesting with when you talk about the shape of jeans, especially when how now among the really trendy people, it's back with slim fit jeans again. But so they want to have the same use as the people that are not trendy at all. So it's everything is getting more fitted now. You can see that in the both women's and men's shows for next fall 2026. It's much more body conscious, much more fitted on the body.
I'm glad that I haven't thrown out my jeans and my tight fitting jeans than just yet. But here's the part I loved most in our conversation. Even someone who has spent decades in fashion still experiences the same moment we all do, standing in front of a mirror and asking one quiet question. Do I really dare to wear this? I bought, I think, I can't recall the brand, but it was some kind of high-end super light t-shirt in a pinkish kind of color, and that kind of made me feel so different that I really kind of moved it. And that was just, just that t-shirt, right, which I fell in so much in love with. Did you have also something like that, or do you still have that?
I think there are some typical menswear pieces that I want to wear, but I don't do it. That's leather pants, for example. I have maybe two, three really nice like leather pants, but I never use them. Never. I when I try them on, I think I look cool, but then I don't know what it is. If I have the self-confidence, but I think it's just a difficult, because if you have a leather pants, they stand out so much. So I think I get a little bit nervous about that. And then it's really important what you wear to them, what you combine leather pants with, and because you can't, if you have a leather jacket and leather pants, the look is so hard. And so maybe you want to go for a knitted sweater to soften it up, but it's so that's a piece of clothes that I want to wear, but I never do. And also, I bought some really, really baggy jeans from Acne a couple of seasons ago. That I could actually, this happened. I bought, they were like really baggy and printed. This they are printed in a way that it's not denim, but it's a canvas, but they are printed, so the print is denim, so it's like fool your eye, and they are really baggy. And I went out in them, and then I stopped on like 2 blocks from home and went back and changed again. So I'm 52 years old, and I've been working with this the whole my life, but I still sometimes I can't.
2 blocks, that's how far he made it, before turning around and going home to change. Style, it turns out, is not just about taste. Sometimes it's about courage. Even after decades in fashion, insecurity still shows up.
Sometimes also I can feel that I'm too old for some kind of stuff. I have kids in the 20s, so they are sometimes they are laughing at me. So.
The fashion world that Daniel entered in 2000 was very different, quieter, smaller. Today, Fashion Week are enormous cultural events, influencers, street style photographers, celebrities, and sometimes a little theater.
When I started to go, there was a lot of stylists going to the shows. And now it's a lot of influencers, of course, but it's also a lot of clients. If you go to Louis Vuitton show today, compared to 20 years ago, there's a lot of like their biggest clients are invited because they are buying the brand. So in a way, it's so much more commercial. The show has become much bigger, and it's like a circus around it, and outside and inside and everything. When I went to the latest Louis Vuitton show for men in January, it took me almost 4.5 hours to get from I left my hotel in the afternoon, and I came home very late in the evening, and I only went to one show that it's like 15 minutes long, but it took forever to get in, to get out, and wait forever. It's huge. If you haven't been there, you can't imagine how big it is. They close down parts of Paris, like blocks after blocks. They close it off. There's a lot of people that are still there, but also a lot of course, a younger audience of clients, pop stars, influencers.
I haven't actually told you, but what I had kind of like my midlife crisis was I want to do something that I always wanted to do, and I wanted to start my own fashion business. And what I was so surprised, first of all, that everybody was so super open, but there was really, and then I was expecting that there's a lot of attitude and self-confidence and, cockiness, which wasn't the case at all. So I was so super surprised. were so super soft, and it was super, super nice. And that, I was really, really surprised by that.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear. I think I have experienced both. There can be a lot of like bitchy people at the PR departments for the big brands. It's especially when you come from a small market as Stockholm and Sweden. When you try to get into all these shows and stuff like that, you are really, really on the lowest point in the ranking, because the market here is so small. But I mean, there's also, of course, a lot of lovely people, and I think that you used the word open-minded, and I think when you work with fashion, there's more common that people are open-minded. I think when it comes to sex, when it comes to ethnicity, color, everything. So. I really love that. And when I started at my magazine, if you were a guy interested in fashion in the 90s in Stockholm, they thought you were gay. Otherwise, you couldn't be interested in fashion. So it was a lot of stuff like that that completely changed today. And I'm really happy for that. And I also think that the fashion is progressive and very open-minded when it comes to. I mean, it's an exclusive world. They exclude a lot of people also when you are not invited to the shows. You are excluded, but they are also included when it comes to a lot of like, for example, sex and ethnicity.
Now we're talking also the kind of you participating in the shows and then kind of like more during the day and for your daily job. Are you dressing differently, or let's put it that way? Are you dressing for yourself or dressing for the role? Is there a difference?
It's always very practical. It depends if I'm walking to the show, if I'm taking a cab to the show, what brand it is. If it is a brand that I maybe have some pieces in my wardrobe, I normally maybe wear them. So it's kind of like it's a practical thing for me. But of course, if it's a show with what would you say, Acne, the Swedish brand, I could come in jeans and a t-shirt. But if it's Louis Vuitton, I always dress up. I always like wear a suit and yeah. And then it's also good because if you wear a suit, if you come to a show in a suit, I always try to get like backstage to get access to the designers, maybe to talk to some celebrities. If you wear a suit and you don't have like the backstage access, you can always try to look like a security or something, and you can get in. you are much more. Yeah, it's true. So sometimes people think that I'm a security guy when I'm standing backstage and try to interview Pharrell Williams or something. So that's a trick I have.
Okay, but I didn't exactly expect that, because I was more kind of like, okay, in business and politics, if you wear a suit and you kind of show kind of you have some power to your influence and everything.
Of course, but I feel that too.
But I mean, it's yeah. But it's by the way, Pharrell, I don't have obviously the latest things, but I love and loved his sneakers, and I still do. So that's the some of them, not the latest ones, obviously, but it's you can't actually get them here in Switzerland. That's almost impossible. Which is a pity. But anyway, yes. But but we have also changed and touched upon that the industry has changed quite a lot. I'm a little bit ambiguous with that. And also because I know some of the people, for example, like Pitti, because I have been participating at Pitti a couple of times. And I was actually a real buyer there, right? So I went there. I was kind of like collaborating and buying stuff. But now you have this exactly those influencers and running around and jumping around, and it's kind of like more a show for themselves and creating content, and there's also obviously a whole bunch Swedes now doing exactly that, which have no, there's it's just kind of a hobby, or I don't know what you describe that even. How is that? How is that for you? How does that? I mean, because I get a little bit, when I was there, I was a little bit. I mean, this is weird. Some of them at that time, and it's really. I mean, they're running around and they actually get access to PT.
Yeah.
And because probably of the number of followers, and I had to kind of prove that I'm a business entity and that I'm actually buying and everything, and so that's kind of like anti-climax a little bit. Do you feel the same, or what is your kind of, without,
Yeah. I mean, privately, I don't care so much about them, but work-wise, I think for my readers, for the readers in Café Magazine and King Magazine that I work for, it's really useful to show street-style pictures of influencers, because I think if we do like a story about this is how men dress during PDOMO, that's always a popular thing. And compare that to this is how the new Prada collection looks like. No one clicks on that. So it's they want to have these pictures on the street, taken on the street. So for me, it's a tool. I mean, the influencers and the celebrities, they are tools for me to show trends for my readers, because I know they like it. So maybe, I mean, personally, I can get tired of it. I can think, I mean, sometimes Florence, it looks really, I mean, it looks insane, I think, how people dress and how they stand there for hours and posing, and they are so dressed up in so much stuff that it looks like theater. So I don't privately, I don't think it's cool at all, but I can use the pictures that they create in my work. So that's how I do.
Yeah, it was really big. I mean, they're just kind of like outside of the buildings, in front of the nice stairs, and kind of like the standard. And it was so, I found it so strange.
Yeah, it is. It is
also, but because it's you're not kind of. I mean, they're not really creating something or contributing, but I mean, just showing them off themselves, which is a little bit,
it is
a little bit borderline.
And also, Florence is it's very special. When you mention these special guys that's standing in where for me, it's more like theater. It doesn't feel natural. There are other cities that are really interesting when it comes to street style. For example, Copenhagen. The fashion week in Copenhagen is very much built on street style, especially women's maybe, but they are not. I mean, they are dressed like that the girls in Copenhagen, they look like that. It's a Copenhagen girl. She has a style, but Florence is it's a little bit special. You don't see that kind of guys anywhere else in the world.
No, exactly. And Copenhagen, I fully agree. I was actually working there for 3 years, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And it's also it's a cool vibe, but also probably also functional but practical, because there's a lot of wind and rain, so it makes a lot of sense. Yeah. How, is it now kind of reflecting on yourself now? Has that kind of also because of what you just said, the part of your job and the visibility and how the relatability of social media and kind of being present at this event, has that changed for you, and how you kind of act and interact at those events?
Yeah, I would say that. I mean, when I came to Café Magazine and the fashion department, before that I was working at a tabloid, Expressen, a tabloid in Sweden, and before that I was working at a local newspaper in the city I grew up. So during my entire life, since I was 15, 16 years old, I've been working at newspapers or magazine. It's the only thing I've been doing in my whole life. When when social media came, when Instagram was launched, Facebook, everything, I was so used to document everything that I went to, because that's the only thing I've been doing in my whole life. Going into rooms, see what's happening, maybe ask someone a question. Or so I started my first blog, my fashion blog, 2004, 5 or something. I was really early with that, and I loved it because it was a natural thing for me to have a small pocket digital camera to take pictures backstage, and I worked all night to write this blog, and when Instagram was launched, I loved it, and I still do. But it's much more like I want to document everything. I want to show that I've been there. I want to have it as a memory. So I use Instagram a lot. I go back. Okay, how was that show, and what did I do in Paris? Because it's so well documented on my Instagram, all the shows and all the fashion weeks I've been to. So it has been really important for me. And also now when I'm a freelance, since a couple of years ago, I have to also work for myself with social media. I do some paid collaborations. I do so it's really important for me, Instagram.
When people ask Daniel how to develop personal style, his advice is surprisingly simple. Start with history. I don't think many are actually aware, but many of the garments we still wear today were designed generations ago, which tells you something important. Good design lasts.
What I get inspired of, both in my work and privately, is to read about the history about menswear. I get really inspired of that, to read about the pea coat, the trench coat, and you suddenly you realize that they were made like 100 years ago and they look the same. If you want to buy like a jacket, for example, or a coat or something, and don't just Google where can I buy a pea coat. You can also like look. Ask ChatGPT or try to read about the history of the garment, because that's so interesting. I think that it's an evidence of really, really good design. When you a trench coat, they were made for the First World War. I mean, and they still look the same. I think it's unbelievable. And I think, and also now we have a huge preppy trend this spring. So it's a lot of like club blazers, it's rugby shirts, it's colors, it's all these knitted sweaters in pink and pastels and striped ties. And I love to go back and look at pictures from the 50s, from the 60s, from the universities on the East Coast in US, and you get also the history and the thing you can buy now. So I think that's an advice that because every piece of clothing when it comes from the men's wardrobe have a history, and I really love that, and that's one of the most fun thing about my job is really to write about these trends that are coming back, preppy, for example. And you go back, you look at movies, and you see all these beautiful pictures from campus, from Harvard, and you see all these clothes from the 50s, and they look exactly the same. So I think that's an advice I would like to give, to dig more into history also, not just Google where to buy. You can also get a little bit knowledge about the wardrobe.
Also in terms of the material,
yes,
right? Because it's
a lot of things to learn about when it comes to fabric, especially if you buy outerwear, and outerwear is kind of expensive, and I think it's important that you ask, and that you this garment, this fabric, does it breathe? Is it water resistant, and everything like that. Also, when it comes to a suit, it's such a difference to buy a suit in linen compared to wool, compared to cotton, because for a normal guy, a suit is a huge investment. And if you're going to buy your first suit, there's so many questions you have to be asked. You have to ask yourself, when are you going to use it? Is it like for work? Is it for a special? Is it a wedding, or is it a Christmas party or New Year's party? And also, and the fabric is so important, because if you buy a linen suit, maybe you don't want to wear that at winter time. So you have to.
Yes.
It's you have to do your homework.
Strip everything back, and Daniel believes most men only need a few essential pieces.
Number one is like the navy or black like blazer. I think a pair of penny loafers. I think, and of course, an Oxford shirt in a good quality. Chinos, or like a pair of like straight Levi's 501 jeans. I mean, you have that look. Like you can wear that. You can change and you can use that kind of. There are 5-6 pieces in the wardrobe that are really like, this is the important stuff. And it's also interesting when you meet designers. For example, I interviewed Tommy Hilfiger a lot of times, and he always coming back. It's not my favorite brand in the world, but he's always coming back to that kind of like loafers, chinos, Oxford shirt, navy blazer. That's it. And he's right. Yeah. He's right.
I mean, Gant, right?
Yeah. Lovely brand.
With Christopher.
Yeah,
exactly. And with all this, exactly this kind of. This is actually a shirt of that the old kind of versions that they made. I mean, that's super cool.
Yeah.
And obviously Ralph Lauren.
Yes.
In the context of the preppy style, perfect inspiration for that. In the end, style comes down to one simple thing: confidence. Not forced confidence, but a quiet confidence that comes from wearing something that actually feels right. If something feels wrong when you wear it, people will see it.
If you feel insecure, you should start adding colors in the accessories. If you love like navy blue, gray, and black, and you can start to try out with accessories. For example, your tie, a scarf. In the wintertime, you can have a beanie, or gloves, or socks, or something in a color, and then you work your way up. I mean, you have a nice color on your sweater there, but it's. I don't think you should go for strong colors in the outerwear, because you always get tired of it. If you see like a red coat or that, I think you get tired of it. So black and gray and navy, it's the best colors for everything. But then you add colors all the time. So I have some. I very, very seldom wear pants with any colors, but I use, like you do, a sweater like that. So start small.
Start small, and then
yes,
discover yourself. And for you, how it? I mean, is there, what kind of makes an item feel okay? That's really kind of me. Is there kind of an advice that that you recognize something like, oh, that's now we're talking like
a piece of clothing that you really feel that you have confidence in, because if it feels wrong in any way, it will look wrong, because then if you buy something and it doesn't feel right, you will see that on that person, that they are insecure. So that's you should only wear things that you feel comfortable with, because then you will look attractive.
We often talk about clothing as it lives on the surface, as if it's separate from who we actually are. But this conversation suggests something different. Clothing can shape confidence, signal identity, and sometimes helps us to step into a version of ourselves we're still growing into. If someone out there is listening, is still figuring out who they are, what role do you think clothing can play in their journey?
Everything. No, not everything. Not everything, but you can if you're going to an job interview or something, you can make a statement with your clothes for sure. So also when it comes to meet your partner in life, it's just the surface. It's not the most important thing. The most important thing is how people, of course, are inside in the heart and everything. But I think you can make people interested of you if you dress in a special way. You can make an impression.
Daniel Lindström, thank you very much for the conversation. And thank you for listening to This is Mental.